Recording as we prepare to get started. Awesome. Well, let's give 15 more seconds ish, just for any last folks to throw in the chat. Even more walks. Wow, I guess the moral of the story is everyone needs to go take a walk tomorrow if you have not this week. Well, awesome. Let's dive in since we have just 1 hour together. So my name is Christopher Dorn. I'm on staff with MNIPL, and I'm super excited to be with you all. Don't forget, if you have some background noise, make sure you mute yourself just so we can all hear. And we're really excited for our Community Connector webinar for March. But just before we get started, let's take a few moments to ground ourselves. So we always start with a land acknowledgement. And so I encourage you to put your feet on the ground, close your eyes, lower your gaze, and just take a breath together, and I'll read our land acknowledgement. So wherever you may be, let us acknowledge that we're all on Indigenous land. Minnesota is located on the traditional and contemporary homelands of the Anishinaabe and Dakota peoples, the original stewards of this territory. We also acknowledge the trauma that is deeply embedded in the foundation of this country. The land we reside on came under control of the USA through genocide, slavery, and ongoing occupation. We recognize the deep historical, spiritual, and personal trauma that's impacted Indigenous communities, communities of color, immigrant, and other communities. And by offering this acknowledgement of trauma, we affirm the right of people to bring their whole selves and stories into the space, and we affirm our intent to promote healing, respect, and love. And one other kind of grounding that we wanted to do, this is just kind of a quote from Rabbi Rami Shapiro, I think speaking to the moment that we find ourselves in with Ukraine and just so much fear and grief about war across the world. I don't know how many of you heard about the IPCC report that came out yesterday, and just more of, the message that we keep hearing of how bad the climate crisis is, how much worse it can get if we don't act. It's just, there's a lot of heaviness. And so I hope that you all can take this quote as well, and think about in your own tradition, how can this ground you as we continue this important work? So from Rabbi Rami Shapiro, do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. So we'll just take a breath and think about those words. And remember how important it is to pause and to, in whatever way, in whatever tradition we're part of, to ground ourselves, because this is the work of our lifetimes, and there's just a lot going on. So tonight, from 7 to 8, we've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about and explore together. Right now we're in our welcome and grounding. Then we will talk about our Earth Month 2022 invitation. We'll explore that, answer questions, see what you think. We'll talk about next steps, answer any other questions you have, and then we'll get you out the virtual door. So we always like to ground our Community Connector webinars just first kind of with a refresher on what are we doing at MNIPL, what's our work and why is it important to show up in this way? At MNIPL, our goal is to grow the interfaith climate justice movement. We believe that people of faith have a really unique, powerful role in this movement. We have, pre-existing communities with unique assets. We have an impact on decision makers and the culture. And all of our religions and traditions and spiritualities teach us to care for each other and our home, our common home, the earth. So it's really exciting together to be working to grow this movement. And community connectors, as you can kind of see in our little drawing, are a linchpin of this work, because we believe this work is about being and doing with other people, not just you doing things in isolation. So whether you're part of a book club or a congregation or something else, everybody is essential to growing the movement and building power together. So community connectors, a lot of you are already one, which is awesome. And maybe some of you just wanted to show up tonight, and that's fantastic. This webinar is for everyone, but we always just give a little plug. We have over 250 community connectors around the state. And they're just people who connect MNIPL with their communities. So it could really just be that, getting action opportunities and sharing it. It could be all the way to leading your congregation's green team and anything in between. We just want people to sign up and get started. So we always share this little handy dandy link. So I just put it in the chat. If you want to commit for the first time or recommit to being a community connector, we would love for you to fill out this quick little form. And what you'll get from us is an email from an MNIPL staffer. We'll have a quick phone call. We'll check in, hear about your community. You will get monthly Spark action alerts just for community connectors, all kinds of other resources, coaching. It's all great. So we encourage you to sign up. But now I'm gonna pass it all to you. So we're gonna go somewhere different. You are going to need to go to either your phone, if you have it with you, or go on your computer and either text on your phone Sturdy Moon 443 to the number 37607, or again on your phone or on your computer, you can go to pollev.com/SturdyMoon443, and we're going to do a little word cloud. And we've tried this before, so maybe you're familiar with this, and this is also kind of a fun thing to try, maybe with your congregation or your community or your green team or whatever. What you're going to see in a moment is, so now that it's activated, you should be able to see your words that pop up. Or what is something on earth that you love? And if you want to put more than one word, you just need to put a period in between the words. So no spaces, just a period, if that makes sense. And looks like people are still typing. I'm going to go type myself. And if you have a question, just come off mute and we can kind of explain it. Ooh, seeing things coming in. Oh, Lake Superior has been repeated a couple times. Very nice. Oh, someone said egg. That's awesome. Trees, kids, ocean. Got some Mississippi, Minnehaha Creek representation. Sky. Ooh, trees are also looking popular. Someone said Pacific, moving water, sound of a river. Lots of water connections here. So hopefully you can see all the incredible things in our world. And if anybody wants to come off mute and maybe super briefly, like in a sentence or two, share maybe what you were thinking about. Like if the person who said egg wanted to come off mute, that would be kind of fun. But anyone can. I see someone did a horse. That's fun. Oh no, it said the poll is full. I've never had a full poll. Well, I'm very sorry if you could not get your word in there. You can also put it in the chat, of course. Oh, and Bev said she put Egg Harbor Beach, but it didn't take all the words, darn. But food is also a wonderful part of our lovely earth. So hopefully that brought a little bit of joy. just thinking about all the incredible things that make up our world. So now we're going to kind of ground in to why we're here talking about Earth Day. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I would love to hear or see a show of hands who remembers the first Earth Day in 1970. Oh, very nice. People were doing stuff maybe. That's awesome. So yeah, Earth Day has an incredible legacy and it kind of blew my mind. So just wanted to give a little bit of background. The first Earth Day was in 1970, and that's because Senator Gaylord Nelson from our neighbor Wisconsin and many others were concerned about what we're doing to the environment and how it wasn't a top issue and how it was perfectly legal to, pollute all of our rivers and, dump toxic waste around because there was no EPA, there was no Clean Air Act, really nothing. And, there were these student anti-war protests happening. There was growing consciousness about, hey, we have one Earth, we should probably take care of it. And so they designed, on April 22nd, an invitation around the country to do something, either protest or do a teach-in or something about raising awareness for caring for the Earth. And what happened? Does anybody know how many people participated in that first Earth Day? You can just come off mute. No guesses. How about this? 20 million. That was 10% of the whole US population. They went out in the streets or they did a teach-in. People, it was crazy. I couldn't even imagine that many people participating in something today. And that was, one of the first opportunities for people to join a big demonstration and send a big message of, we need to protect our planet. We need to protect each other. And by the end of that year, there was the EPA created, there was the Clean Air Act, 2 years later, the Clean Water Act passed. It was huge. So that's kind of the legacy of this day that we celebrate. And this year, 52 years later, we again have Earth Day on April 22nd. And we also have kind of a unique situation because not only do we have congregations and communities dealing with COVID and all of these, public health safety measures and changes and just kind of lots of lack of clarity there, but we also have 3 major religious and sacred days for Muslims, Jews, and Christians. We have Ramadan, which is all of April. We have Passover, the evening of the 15th to the evening of the 23rd. And then we have Holy Week, which is April 10th to the 16th. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of holy days. There's a lot of things that are up in the air. And so as we were thinking about how do we equip our communities with resources to, take meaningful action during Earth Day, we thought, what if we opened it up to any time during Earth Month, April, basically, congregations and communities took action and we captured what they were doing. And so we have put together 3 kind of special, action opportunities and resources, but also are aware that maybe you and your community are thinking about doing something totally different. And that's amazing too. It's not like you have to do these 3 things. We just are offering them as kind of exciting choose your own adventure opportunities. And our goal is that at least 50 congregations around the state are taking action, sharing what they're doing during Earth Month. Kind of like a mosaic, we all represent different pieces of the puzzle, and we hope that it all kinds of adds up together. And again, if your action is not one of the 3 that we are kind of recommending and providing resources in, that's totally fine. That provides something for the mosaic as well. And then we get to celebrate what everyone did on Earth Day and beyond as we recap all the amazing things that happened over the month. So hopefully that makes sense. And so what we're going to do is kind of dive into these 3 Earth Month invitations. And as you hear about them, you might think, wow, that's super, that sounds incredible. Or you might think, oh, that's not a super great fit for my community right now, maybe in the future or something like that. but hopefully these ideas at least give you some inspiration for what you want to do. And so what they are divest from fossil fuels and invest in climate justice, raise your voice for statewide climate action, and finally connect Earth Day into your rituals, traditions, liturgies, etc. So we're gonna jump on in with divest from fossil fuels. And Claire is gonna take it away.
Awesome, thanks, Carissa. So my name's Claire, I'm a fellow at MNIPL, and I've been focused on the divestment section of our toolkit. And I'm going to go over some basics about divestment and then kind of the tools and the things we want to highlight about it in the toolkit. So first off, just to start, what is divestment? At its most basic, divestment is simply making sure that money does not support fossil fuels. It's taking our money away from banks and investments and things that are going to the fossil fuel industry, that are going to new fossil fuel projects, things like that, that are maintaining those harmful practices. And then we've added in the piece, a really important piece of divestment, which is the reinvestment, investing in climate justice, investing in organizations, banks, different things that are actually doing good for the environment, not harming it. So that's the kind of basic framing here. And then I've got this graph on the slide to show that biggest chunk there is faith communities. So we're talking about institutions that are doing divestment, because this is both an individual action that's possible and community and institutional actions. Maybe you've heard of, universities doing divestment projects. That's a big one with their endowments and investments. But the largest chunk in this graph is actually faith-based organizations. So as MNIPL, we see that and think that there's actually so much potential in all of our churches or connections to faiths to make this a wider spread thing across the state. So another famous example of divestment, just to give some context before getting into our actions, is anti-apartheid divestment strategies. Maybe some of you were aware of that at the time or involved even. There's lots of different forms of divestment used as just an economic strategy to help us invest in things that matter to us, instead of kind of letting companies and groups use our money for harmful things. So I wanted to see if anyone, before going to the next slide, if you could give a thumbs up on Zoom if you've done your own personal divesting. Has anyone done that process, started that process? Maybe, given up a credit card, moved a bank? Awesome, great to see that. So yeah, one of our suggestions on the next slide is individual divestment. So that's a process that we want to encourage folks to do, but also maybe you've already done that. Maybe you're working on that process, but it can take a while if you're especially looking at retirement accounts, mortgages, different things like that, because there's all these different ways we can divest. So there's that individual piece, but also we're offering divestment workshops, and you'll see Buff, a staff member at MNIPL, you probably all are familiar with him, his emails up there to coordinate divestment workshops. So this could look like your green team at your church, or even just a group of friends or some other action group you're part of, having an MNIPL workshop either hosted on Zoom or in person about divestment. And that can be a conversation about strategies to push your organization, plans for individuals to continue to take action, strategies for your organization to actually start the divestment process, all of those pieces. So there's this offering of a divestment workshop. When Carissa's saying, these are what we're offering, that's one of the paths in this Choose Your Own Adventure for Earth Month. And then also on divestment, individual action. In the toolkit, there will be a bunch of links for resources for that. Maybe some of you have your own resources you found useful in the divestment process. Hopefully some of them overlap with what we found. We found some really good online resources of just kind of laying out how to pull that money out, where to look for new places to invest, that whole process. So that'll be in the toolkit that you all will receive. And that can be just a guide for going through your own divestment process. And then to keep the momentum going, if you do choose the individual action, especially making sure that that still is amplified. So sharing your divestment story, both on social media, you can email it to us even. And one thing that we're picturing, is sharing kind of, okay, I removed my money from this bank because of this, or I'm cutting up this credit card. Here's a photo of me doing it. I'm excited to now be with this local credit union. That type of story, just to continue to spread this awareness for people. Some people may not know how harmful their bank's investments are. So if you're, using our resources that we are gathering in this toolkit, a lot of them will show you kind of where your bank falls in that range of fossil fuel investments. So sharing your story, encouraging friends to divest, and then again, leading this process at your church, within your green team. Maybe your broader faith communities already having those conversations. We found some great examples of Catholic organizations divesting. I'm a Unitarian myself, and that was a whole process in the Unitarian Universalist Association a few years ago. I think it was like 2014, but yeah, maybe some of you were involved in it. But I think that the keeping the momentum going piece is really important for continuing those workshops, just spreading divestment, especially if it is something you're already familiar with. So those are our routes for how to approach divestment for Earth Month. And again, divestment is just one of the pieces of things we're offering. But that process of taking away this resource, this money from fossil fuels, and then investing it elsewhere is a really important piece of, putting our money where our mouth is, where our values are, and living out our beliefs. So yeah, that's my piece. Thanks, everyone. If anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the chat, but you will get the toolkit with all of these resources about divestment.
Awesome. Thanks, Claire. And one fun fact that just happened is I think as of now, $40 trillion have been, if we go back to this little graph, all of these groups, pulling money from fossil fuels have removed $40 trillion from fossil fuels, which is huge. And they're starting to take notice, but we need more. So thanks so much, Claire. I'm going to talk about option 2, which is raise your voice for statewide climate action. So, maybe you were involved in our meetings with Congress people last spring when we were pushing for federal climate action. We know that, all the individuals taking the amazing actions to decarbonize are not going to add up quickly enough. And so we need policy change. And right now, we are still working on making Build Back Better cross the finish line, which would be the biggest climate investments in US history. It's being held up right now in the Senate with Senator Joe Manchin. However, we know that at the state level, we don't have, one vote holding us back. We can do things at the state level and be a climate leader right now. So as I'm chatting with you, it's kind of an interesting graph. If you want to check out from Minnesota, where we've been on climate from 2005 to 2018 on reducing our emissions and kind of these key categories. Is there anything to anyone that stands out in our, in these different sectors trying to reduce our emissions? What do you notice? And if you don't want to say out loud, you can also put it in the chat. What stands out to me is that in a lot of these areas, emissions are actually growing. They are not being reduced. In electrical generation, it is going down, which is fantastic, but it's not all going down quickly enough. And so that's where policy comes in. So this year, we know we have some amazing opportunities for leadership. The Minnesota House kind of Climate Caucus has revealed a $1 billion Build Minnesota Climate budget proposal. We have $9 billion in budget surplus. And so their proposal is that we use $1 billion of that to invest in clean energy, electric car charging, adaptation and resilience, environmental justice, all these amazing things, electrifying and making our buildings more energy efficient. Just stuff that we know we need, and we have the money to do it right now. And I'm actually going to throw in the chat, but you'll get this in a follow-up email after this. just kind of a one-pager of what's in this proposal. And also, we're really excited about a bill called the Cumulative Impacts Bill. It's kind of hard to say, but essentially it would really focus on making it harder and nearly impossible for polluting industries to build, power plants or, polluting buildings in communities that already are experiencing pollution, which are overwhelmingly Black, Brown, low-income communities. And so these two kind of statewide opportunities, we know that it's hard to pass things at the Minnesota State House. We have, kind of a divided legislature, but we know that if we push for these common sense, bills, they can pass. And so that's where this invitation comes in. You might have, again, like I said, connected with your congressperson last spring on Zoom, or maybe you've gone to meet with your state legislator in person before. We're kind of inviting you to imagine combining them since we are still in COVID times and we're becoming more proficient, obviously, in Zoom. And we know that it's really possible to meet with your state legislator on Zoom because it's already happened. So our hope this spring is to have at least 10 virtual meetings with our state senators during April. There's going to be a legislative recess during Holy Week, so they have lots of time to meet with their constituents. And our invitation is that you either think about where you live, and so we can help you find out who your state senator is and set up a meeting with them on Zoom. Or you can think about maybe you belong to a faith community that's in a different district than yourself. That's fine too, because if you set up a meeting with the state senator who represents your faith community, then you can invite people from your faith community, even though they don't live in the district, because you can tell the story of your faith community, like, hey, last year we got solar on our roof and here's how much money that we've saved and here's why this is really important to us, kind of sharing with the state senator who represents your faith community. So you can kind of go about this in two ways. And a really important thing to remember is you don't need a large group to have an impact. You can see when we met with Representative Dean Phillips last spring, we had about 60 people. But you do not need that many people, especially if you're going to be setting these meetings up. Even a meeting with maybe one other person and you and them, or two or three. I mean, we'd love to have more as well, but they represent you. They need to hear what matters to you and why you care about climate change and climate leadership. So, this isn't a huge, insurmountable thing, but instead an opportunity to maybe invite members of your faith community to join you, or again, maybe some friends who live in your neighborhood. So essentially what this task would be is working to set up a 30-minute meeting with them and then inviting members of your community to join. And you can also reach out to us. We're definitely happy to look up where you live, where your district is, and say, hey, there's another faith community that's in the same area. Here's a community connector there. Maybe they want to join as well, and they want to invite members of their community as well. So there's lots of ways to do this, but kind of the key thing to remember is our representatives, their job is to hear from us, to hear our climate stories, to act on what we want them, hopefully to do. And so this is a really easy, especially on Zoom, and meaningful way to make an impact for climate. And I will say, even if you have a climate champion who you're like, they don't need to hear from me, they're good, like whatever, they're also important to talk to, because they need to know that their constituents have their back and that they, that there's an expectation that they continue to lead and be really strong. So that's the invitation for raising our voices for climate action at the state level. I'd love to hear if there are any questions. Awesome. Wow, look at that. We're all good. Oh yeah, Robert, my state senator wouldn't even return my calls, and we're friends. That is definitely an issue. And that's a good point as well. So I forgot to mention this. If you're interested in this, we do have kind of a toolkit, again, laying out just kind of steps, resources, ideas, people to contact. And that's a big thing. Maybe your state senator's office just never gets back to you and they never schedule a meeting. Then we as a MNIPL staff would love to meet with you and kind of talk through what are some other strategies that we could do. And that's true, there's some other people who are not in Minnesota, so maybe you could apply this to your own state. But I would say just super fast, you could connect with other people from your district and maybe plan, hey, at 2 p.m. on this Thursday, a group of 10 of us, we're all going to call their office. And since they don't want to meet with us, then they're going to hear from us on the phone, and it's going to be a lot of people at once, and it's going to make an impression on them of like, wow, look at all these people who are calling me. And Patty, yeah, do legislators respond to letters? I'd love to get children in our faith community to write letters or draw pictures. That is so beautiful. And that is amazing. I would say kind of the hierarchy of what they pay attention to. And again, this is just from my opinion, from what I've heard. An email is probably at the lowest because lots of people just click form emails and send them quickly. And so they do, notice that, and they will tally down how many emails they get on a subject, but they also know like it's really easy to send a quick email by just pressing send on an online petition, but still important. Kind of probably the next level would be calling their office and either leaving a message or talking to their office. It's a little more work, but it's still pretty easy. And then kind of above there is sending a handwritten letter, because that obviously took a lot more work. It's a physical thing that they can hold and have in their office, especially if it's from kids. So I love that idea. And then probably the top thing would be actually meeting with them, having, a face-to-face or on Zoom, a Zoom conversation with them, because they get to actually hear your story. You've taken the time to set up a meeting with them, to share with them. So hopefully that kind of makes sense, but I think that is a really great idea, Patty. Any other questions about this?
Chris, Peter has a hand up.
Yeah, Peter.
Yeah. You mentioned a state legislator might already be on board, and so you're asking about what to do. Well, someone who's already on board with you can always help lobby other legislators. Plus, if it's a state level person, you can ask them to lobby for action at the federal level, because these state legislators are in closer contact with the federal congresspersons and US senators. So
yes, that is so true. I love that. Thank you. Yeah, so not only do they need to hear, like, keep up the good fight, we need you to keep being a leader, but they can get a little, fire in their belly of, we don't just want you to be a passive supporter, we want you to go and pressure your friends and colleagues to support this. And we want you to, like you said, talk to federal representatives and talk to them about maybe Build Back Better. So true. So I hope that no one writes this off of like, oh, they already hear from me, they're already on board, they know we care, because that's, they still need to hear. And Paul, good question. Is Governor Walz on board? I don't want to say something wrong. I'm almost sure he is, but I am going to make a note right now that I will get back to you, because if anyone maybe knows, that would be great to come off mute. I'm almost positive, but I do know it's from the Minnesota House Climate Caucus. I'm not sure if anyone has any info, but okay, we'll get back to you on that, Paul. That's a great question. Awesome. And so our third invitation is going to be explained from Terry. So Terry, take it away.
Thanks so much, Krista, and hello and welcome everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you all. My name is Terry Bernor. I'm on staff with MNIPL. I use she and her pronouns. And I'm also a Unitarian Universalist minister who is based in community and has the great joy of getting to do multi-faith work with people from many, many different traditions and practices. So I wanted to speak to the ways that we can use Earth Day to connect to the depths of our traditions, our practices. As Krissa shared earlier, this year Earth Day occurs in a season of sacred days that are spanning 3 different religious traditions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and the April celebrations of Ramadan, Passover, and Easter. This convergence offers peoples observing these holy days a unique opportunity to reflect on how their specific traditions call one to care for creation. But it's also no coincidence that Earth Day is in April, and especially for us in Minnesota and across the upper Midwest and in the colder climates, this is the month when spring starts to feel very, very real. We can feel deep in our bodies the Earth's invitations to grow and to move, to sprout, to be renewed in our connections to nature, to life, and to one another. And while the urgency of the climate crisis calls us fervently to act, we do that work from a place of grounding, each of us drawing strength and resiliency, compassion, and courage from our faith, our beliefs, our practices, our values, the community we gather with, the taproot that brings us back to our center again and again. And I'm going to be bold here in proclaiming that all of us, every single one, require, almost with an ache, time and space to connect to the earth in personal and tangible ways. Now, how that precisely happens, I'm sure, is all over the board. It's going to vary widely for all of us. Some need the distance and solitude of the boundary waters, others the expanse of the prairies, and still others simply a patch of ground in a city park. And I loved that word cloud that Carissa shared and had us all participate earlier as we were able to think about and name those personal connections that we have, because there is no one way to be with the earth. So whether you are observing a set of holy days in your tradition, or are part of a faith or spiritual community, or are following your own path of attention and connection, we at MNIPL encourage you to set aside time to intentionally breathe into the beauty and the possibility of the world around you. And some of the ways that we're going to lift up in this toolkit that we keep talking about, that I'm sure Carissa will go into a little bit more details here later in this presentation. In our toolkit, we're going to give some ideas and suggestions on ways that you can make those connections. One is to create a ritual with yourself, your community, or your friends, using your breath, incorporating the elements, experiencing either silence or sounds, movement or stillness. There are all kinds of natural and organic ways that can inspire a simple yet powerful ritual of interconnection. And I hope the word ritual itself won't turn you off or make it seem all big and scary and something that you have to be, I don't know, like a clergy person to figure out if that might be something that is coming to mind. But rituals are just set aside times, really. They're just times when we are paying attention, using some sort of modality that centers us and helps us just tap into that moment. And it can truly be as simple as running your hands through a bowl of water and taking some breaths. That is a ritual. It can be rituals that you might practice in your faith tradition or community. There are many, many ways to create ritual. If you do gather with a religious or spiritual community, encourage the inclusion of elements that celebrate Earth Day during worship, prayer, meditation, silence, song making, your board meetings, your team meetings, times of faith formation, education, or any of the multitude of ways that our communities come together, both mundane and profound. We can connect our meaning making with the gifts teachings, and obligations we receive from the earth. Again, we just have to do it with intention of saying we are going to take this time in this board meeting to recognize that April is Earth Day, and how do we connect ourselves with the earth? We can connect Earth Day to the depths and richnesses of our faith and spiritual lives, our practices and traditions. Connect our actions to the energy and wisdom that moves between the inner and the outer, the I and the we, the known and the unknowable. We can bring attention and intention to the promises of a generous, abundant, and healthy planet, and to the prosperity that is available for all. So let us give thanks. Let us dig in. Let us act from this place of connection. And that's what this action for Earth Day and Earth Month can call us to do. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry. So you have gotten a little taste of 3 invitations. And again, maybe one of them is really speaking to you, maybe 2 or maybe all 3 are like, wow, they all sound incredible, a really great fit for my community. Or maybe they sparked inspiration for some other thing that you got excited about, kind of like the writing letters, like kids, writing and creating art to send to their representative, which I just think is amazing. That's kind of the idea here. These are, again, ideas, and you take your creativity and your context and make them magical. So we're going to do a quick poll. I think it should work. Yes, here we go. It should show up for you. You heard a lot of them. I'd love to hear, what are you most excited about? And maybe you're like, I can't answer this because, all of them are exciting. That's fine. Just pick one. It's just for fun. And again, maybe you're excited about something else. Maybe this inspired you to be excited about some other thing that you want to do. You can pick that and you can put it in the chat. Oh, you can pick more than one. Oh, great. I didn't know that. Excellent. All right. Can you see the poll? I don't think you can, right? Maybe if I think if I do this, we're just doing a quick experiment. You should be able to see it now, right? Maybe thumbs up if you can see the poll.
Nope, not yet.
Oh, really?
I think
man.
Hey, Carissa, have you closed the poll?
I will do that, but hopefully I don't lose the data.
When you do close the poll, then you'll be able to show the results.
Okay, let's try it. Can you see? Oh, so share results.
Stop your screen. Yeah, there you go.
Yep. Yay, look at that. Oh, people are excited about all of them, and someone's excited about something else, which is great. But very fun. So there you go. Check out the poll. Oh, and Kathy said connection and ritual with Sunday school kids. Amazing. Yeah, and if you want to add more kind of details of what you're excited about in the chat, that is awesome too. So I'm going to just go quickly over some next steps to make this happen. We're at the very beginning of March. We've got a lot of time until April, but it's also good to start thinking about, what am I going to do right now or soon to make this happen? So the first thing is, as we've mentioned, we will have a lovely Earth Month toolkit for you. It will be ready hopefully by the end of the week. As soon as possible, you will get it in your email inboxes. And that will again include links, resources, support, kind of everything else you need to explore these action options and kind of dig in deeper. So keep an eye out in your inboxes for that toolkit. And kind of in the meantime, maybe you can ruminate a little more of, I'm really interested in divestment and maybe doing a workshop on that. I wonder what that's going to take to, make that happen. And then once you get the toolkit, hopefully you've already done some thinking. Another thing that just really important to keep in mind with whatever actions you do, it's so important to share them throughout the month. We'd love to see them. We'd love for you also to be aware that you should be sharing them with your own community. again, maybe you do an amazing ritual or practice or gathering or something. Please take photos of that. Please share that, with your community and share it with us. We'd love to put it online, but especially share it with us before Earth Day, because we will be kind of celebrating and sharing out some of the photos and stories of the mosaic of what happened over the month. And again, you don't need to write all these things down. You will get this slide later. Just kind of a reminder of whatever you're doing, just be aware of how are you going to capture that. We love visuals. So yeah, is there a way that you can capture that through visuals? Another important way to move forward in next steps is to support our work at MNIPL. Earth Month and so much more is possible with your support and your both participation, connecting your community, and financial support. So as we talk about, divesting from fossil fuels, investing in the world that we want, I'm just so aware of the connection that there is to investing in our work at MNIPL. And so I have that invitation open to you. We also have kind of a special Earth Month, Earth Day donation link. And Terry, if you can pop that in the chat, that would be awesome. Again, you'll get that in a follow-up email tomorrow as well. So there we go.
I already did. You're on top of it, Carissa.
Awesome. And one of our last next steps, again, before you get the toolkit, before you've had a chance to kind of really think through what your next steps are, we'd love to have kind of your action commitment shared with us, because again, we have a goal of 50 communities committed to taking action over Earth Month. And so we'd love for you to be one of them. And so looks like Terry popped that in the chat as well. So I am gonna give us just maybe 1 minute, super fast, to have you check out this form. We'd love for you to fill it out tonight while it's fresh. But of course, if you need time, if you're like, well, I'm not totally sure of which one I'm committed to act on, totally fine. But I will show you what it looks like super fast. So you'll just scroll down, you'll share. Oh, looks like we have email in twice, so we'll have to remove that. But the main thing is right here. I commit to participate in the following actions before or during Earth Month, or after, but preferably before or during, so we can capture it and share your actions. So as you can see, you can actually choose more than one. We're not limiting you. We also want you to be realistic of, you can't do everything, and we don't want you to get burned out or anything like that, but definitely choose what you are thinking about. And if you choose other, we'd love for you to just give a quick phrase or sentence to describe what actions your community is planning to take. And again, maybe you need to take this back to your team or your leadership or your community, talk it through, and then fill it out. That's totally fine as well. And then there's some space at the bottom. Again, kind of that reminder about supporting our work. So I'm gonna stop sharing just for a moment, see if there's any questions about this commitment form as people are kind of looking through it. Hopefully it makes some sense. I do notice with the email thing, that's a mistake, but that's okay. You can just put your email in twice, no problem.
I've already fixed it, Carissa.
Oh, Terry's so fast. Look at that. Awesome. Okay, well, maybe this is your homework as you're watching the State of the Union. After this, you can just fill out the action commitment form. So one of our last things, I'd love to hear from you, just as you think about some next steps. How are you thinking about bringing your community on board? And this is actually a space to just kind of share what you're thinking, and I'd love to kind of capture it. And if you're like, I have no idea how to get my community on board with whatever I'm hoping we do, hopefully you can hear some ideas from others. And I'll get you started because I know this is kind of a big question. And of course, you can always put in the chat. One thing is to think about what would benefit your community. for example, a divestment workshop, would that be something cool that maybe your community leadership would think, oh, people would show up for that on Zoom or in person in masks? That would be a benefit to us. So I'm going to propose that to our leadership and really phrase it as a benefit of, hey, there's this cool workshop, people will come to it, it'll help our community, if that makes sense. So think about how the thing can be a value add to your community. What else? Or if you're like, I have no idea, that's totally fine too. I'll share some other thoughts that I just thought, but I'd love to hear again if any inspiration strikes you. Another is to think about, are there people in your community maybe who that are interested in this topic? Maybe you could have a one-to-one phone call with them or send them an email and say, hey, I have this idea, I'd love to talk about it with you, and see if they would be willing to kind of help you on this and be a partner. Yeah, James said we have a small congregation. We're trying to connect with other churches in our community. Yeah, so maybe think about, again, I have no idea what would be of interest to you, but phrasing the opportunity as a way to connect with other congregations. So again, just thinking about how can you position this as something that will help your community, not just be another thing to do. Paul's sharing. Okay, Judy, awesome. Yeah, so one other kind of tip as you're thinking about some next steps is also think about, who makes the decisions in your congregation or your community, because again, maybe the first thing you're going to need to do is get your leadership to sign off on doing a workshop or adding something into worship or a gathering. So maybe your first step is to talk with your leadership and see what they think about this. Patty said, yes, making something accessible to all ages. Awesome. Well, great. So there's lots of ways to kind of start the process of doing this. And, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed of like, I don't really know how to make that happen, reach out to us. We're happy to talk with you about this. Lee says, continue to get other EV owner owned and solar owned. Dee is working with, they're partnering with their library. That's very cool. Oh, so Paul, they're introducing topics to gauge interest from the community. Very cool. Yeah, so hopefully that gives you at least somewhere to start. And so one other thing as we talk about next steps and think about that, as you can see, there's a lot of kind of do it yourself, take action, report back, let's celebrate together opportunities for this year. But we do have in April a couple important Earth Month events just for you to be aware of, add to your calendar, etc. So the first one is our Unity Iftar. This is our 8th annual Interfaith Unity Iftar that we put on with Gandhi Mahal, our partner restaurant, and other interfaith partners. This event is held during Ramadan. So every day during Ramadan in the evening, Muslims break their fast. And so this is an amazing opportunity to gather, experience Ramadan, build interfaith connections, and celebrate together. And I know that our planning team is still deciding on the date and whether it's going to be in person or on Zoom. I believe it will be in person, but you will hear more soon. It will be in early April. We just didn't want to give you a wrong date. And then on Earth Day itself, if you are really feeling the need and interest to get outside, to get with other people in person who aren't from your faith community, but are from the larger interfaith movement, climate movement, we'd love to invite you, folks in the Twin Cities, folks in Duluth, and folks gathering online to get together in person outside to celebrate Earth Day together. So there will be really light food, some casual kind of opportunities to gather in song and story, build connections, be outside. I believe in Duluth there's going to be a bonfire. Not totally sure yet. So just some great ways, you know, to be in community in a COVID safe way on Earth Day, if that's something that would be meaningful to you. So you will again hear more details about those as well. And online, if you maybe don't want to meet in person, but you'd like to be present, there's going to be kind of a Zoom virtual hybrid option for the Twin Cities event, which is awesome. And then finally, sometime in April, again, sorry for not having specific dates, but you know, we're flexible. We will be having, we're really excited to have a virtual meeting with Senator Tina Smith to thank her for her leadership on the Build Back Better Act. Hopefully by, you know, the end of April when we're planning to meet, we'll have some kind of update on Build Back Better. We'd love to thank her and have it passed and ready to make incredible federal action. But even if it doesn't pass or it takes longer, we want to take the time to meet with her. She has become a national leader for the Build Back Better Act for clean energy, energy justice. And so we want to, specifically from a faith and spiritual perspective, have a chance to meet with her on Zoom to thank her, share a couple stories from communities around the state of, you know, what the Build Back Better Act and these climate provisions could do, what's already happening, but how much more we need to do in our communities of faith. So again, you'll hear more about that, but just another exciting event to be aware of. So with that, we're nearly at the end. We're almost at 8 o'clock, which is awesome. We got 1 minute extra. So I'd love to hear if there are any final questions, thoughts, anything like that that we can cover before we say goodbye. I don't hear any burning ones, which is great. That means we hopefully answered all of your questions, which we love. So as we say goodbye, I just want to thank you all so much again for taking the time in our busy, like I said, stressful times right now to gather, think about Earth Month, think about all the incredible things that we're going to do in our communities and how they are so much bigger than as the sum of their parts than we'd ever be as individuals. So thanks so much, everybody. And if you want to say goodbye in the chat, or you can come off mute, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.